Hi guys, welcome back to Bridging the Gap. And today I'm Mittens back with another episode. And today we're going to be talking about some advice that I have for people going into junior year, any incoming juniors, or even any incoming sophomores. We're trying to find out how to best mentally prepare for junior year because I'm going to be honest, it is a roller coaster. So today I'm going to be doing a deep dive into all my tips and tricks and things I wish I knew before I started junior year. And at the end, I'm also going to be answering some Instagram DMs that we got from setting up a poll on the Bridging the Gap account. So next time, if you do want to be a part of these questions, make sure that you follow our Instagram. All right, let's get started. So I would say we're going to start off with things that I wish I knew. So things that I didn't really know going into junior year and how it was going to affect me. And I think a big thing is realizing how hard some AP classes really are. Because up until then, I think I had taken AP Human Geography, AP World History, and I took AP Stats. And all these classes, they're not like the easiest classes ever, but they're also like not even like close to the hardest. I would say these would all fall below like a harder AP class, obviously. And obviously, as a sophomore going into junior year, I feel like this did shape my way of how I saw AP classes. Like, okay, yeah, it's gonna be a lot of work, a lot of tests, but it's not gonna be that bad. Like, how bad can it really get? And I feel like when I started junior year, I would honestly recommend if you are gonna be taking a lot of APs, try to take one really hard AP and then try to do some more easier APs in there, because I think that's the best way for you to survive junior year in terms of taking a lot of APs. And the mistake that I made was to take two pretty hard APs, and honestly, that just kind of screwed me over because you do not have all the time in the world, especially if you have like a lot of extracurriculars or other commitments outside of school. Like, there is no way you'll be able to like fully dedicate all your time to all your APs and put in the extra work and effort for those harder classes. So, just for context, two of the hard classes I took were BC Calc and AP Physics 1. And BC Calc is obviously the harder class, so I ended up focusing all my efforts in that class, and I neglected my AP Physics 1 grade a lot. And I feel like at the end of the year now, as I'm saying this, first semester was a lot easier than semester 2, so I feel like I could have had a higher average semester 1, could have saved my semester 2 average, if I didn't take BC, or if I just took BC and I just took AP 1. So that's something to think about. And if your school does let you, I would honestly recommend taking things like BC Calc or AP Physics 1 your senior year, because that's when your GPA doesn't really matter as much. That's not what colleges are going to be seeing. So I'd really recommend junior year, you should take like a hard class, at least one hard class, I feel like. But you should also balance that out with some easier APs. And just for context, I'm just going to run down all the classes I took junior year so you guys kind of get background I'm talking from. So obviously I took BC Calc and AP Physics 1. Those are, in my opinion, the harder classes for sure. And then I also took AP Psychology, AP Music Theory, AP English Language and Composition, and APUSH. I believe that's all the ones I took. Yeah, AP US History, APUSH. So yeah, those are all the ones I took. And I'm just going to do a quick ranking of like least difficult to most difficult. I would say, and also this is in the context of my school, by the way, and I'm mostly ranking it in the context of the classwork and the knowledge that you have to learn in the class, and not as much the AP exam. So in terms of the classwork, at least at my school, I would put APUSH at the bottom, and it is a lot of notes, and I know a lot of people can't do notes and they struggle with notes, but personally that's just something that like comes a little easier to me. Like, I can take notes and be ready for class, and that was one of the classes where as long as I had my notes done, I didn't really have to worry about it. You know what I mean? So without APUSH, AP US History is on the bottom for me. After that, I would say AP Psychology. And the only reason I would put AP Psychology above AP US History is because that class gave out so much work. We had to do note cards. There was just so many random assignments that you had to do reading modules. Obviously, the content of the class is fairly simple in comparison to US History, but there's just so much work in that class that I feel like it had to go above AP US History for sure for me. So after that, this is when it gets a little harder to rank, but I would definitely say AP English Language and Composition. I might even put this below AP Psychology. The only reason I'm putting it above is because of how annoying the class is. Like, obviously there's not that much work, it's pretty simple, but I think especially when you start off like first quarter, you're not going to know like the style of essays that the AP graders are looking for necessarily. Because I feel like we've all been kind of put into this box of how we write essays for so much of our lives that we just kind of carry that format over into AP. And obviously, they're not looking for that, they're looking for something else. And I feel like, just in my school, I feel like the way the teachers explained it wasn't very like understandable to me as like an incoming junior. So I struggled a bit first quarter, but after you kind of learn the format of what they're looking for in essays and stuff, I think it does get easier, which is why I put it number three. And I think overall the class I didn't give out much work. Just randomly had like essays due. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I just think that it's really hard to get a really good grade on an essay because they don't tell you exactly what they're looking for. And it's, I don't know, it's just really hard to get a good grade on an essay. And I feel like that's something I never completely was able to do in English. So there's that. And then next I would put AP Music Theory. And I'm putting AP Music Theory next, even though it's a really hard class. I would say the content isn't necessarily the problem, it's just knowing how to do it. And I think we had a new teacher this year, so it was his first year, obviously, but sometimes I didn't understand what was being said in class, and I had to come home and figure it out by myself. And obviously, the AP Music Theory resources online are pretty limited, because not a lot of people take the class. So even if I tried to Google stuff up that would help me, I always got wrong answers or stuff that like didn't make any sense. So I was like stuck at night trying to figure out how to do this assignment. I didn't even know how to do it. And obviously some of that is my fault because I did fall asleep in that class all the time for a semester. But yeah, I think that class was just really hard because unless you have like an inherent music ability or like talent for certain things, it's really hard to do super well in that class, in my opinion, and on the AP exam. No matter how much you work harder to be able to hear things better or understand concepts better, there's just some things that are like innately some people are better at, like quote unquote. So I think that class is like, if you're like really good like musically and you have like good listening skills, like you can hear notes and stuff, like that class will be really easy for you. But if it's not like that for you, that class is definitely going to be on the harder side. So yeah, I would honestly not recommend taking AP Music Theory, even if you're in like band, orchestra, or choir, unless you feel like you have like an inherent ability to hear notes or anything, because I feel like it's just not worth it if you can't. It's like too much work. After that, I would put AP Physics 1. I think the content in this class is not necessarily the problem. It is definitely the way that they word problems. It's like the teacher shows you like a really simple problem. Okay, you get the answer, like, okay, I know how to do this. And they're like, okay, let's try an AP style question. And it's like the most complicated thing ever. And I can never figure out how to answer the AP problems. And I think that is really what threw me for a loop in this class. It wasn't necessarily understanding the core curriculum, but learning how to apply that to different scenarios. But this class is definitely like a practice class. You're only going to get better if you practice. So that's what I would advise. If you guys are taking AP1 next year, practice, and don't slack off at the beginning of the year. And then finally we have BC Calc. And I took BC Calc first semester and then I moved down to AB. So I'm putting BC up here, but if I had to rank AB, I would probably rank it just below music theory, above AP psychology, because it is a pretty easy class. To be fair, I'm also coming from the BC background, so I could just feel that way after BC Calc. But I would say BC Calc is a really hard class, just especially at my school, because the teacher loves to make everything super hard. Like we get a test every single day, and it's like a million answer choices, even the ones that are multiple choice. Like you cannot guess and get the right one. Like it's impossible to guess and get the right one. My class was just really hard because it was super fast paced, and I feel like I couldn't really fully understand all the concepts before we moved on, and I think that was a struggle for me, especially in tests, because even stuff that I supposedly should know, I was still struggling on because I had never fully grasped it. And I think that's like the speed part of that class. So yeah, that was definitely the hardest class I took. Like I tried to do so much extra practice. I even got one-on-one tutoring. Like I just couldn't do it. But like at the end of the day, if you lack that basic foundation of understanding, it's impossible to even apply that to harder questions. And I think that's the reason I did not do well in that class. So if you guys are taking classes like BC or AP Physics 1, I think it would be helpful to start over the summer and kind of work through some of the problems or concepts. That way by the time when you get to the school year, some stuff is easier for you. And honestly, if you guys want to skip like the first couple of units and dive into some of the harder stuff, I think that's more helpful. Like I would definitely not say to go in row, because that's what I did. I did like 1 and 2, and those are like the easiest ones, and those are the only 2 I got through during the summer. But I would definitely not recommend doing that. I would recommend jumping over to harder derivatives and learning how to do integration and harder integration. Honestly, if you can master integration and derivatives in calculus, I think that's honestly like that's going to set you up for a really good foundation for the rest of the year, in my opinion. So that'd be my advice for that class. But That's on my ranking of all my classes. And honestly, if I were to not take a class, I definitely would not have taken AP Physics 1. I mean, obviously, I do regret taking BC Calc a little bit instead of just starting off with AB and then doing BC next year. But I think like that class, like I would have taken it anyway. I definitely would not have taken AP Physics 1 if I had the chance. I would have taken an easier class, as well as music theory. I feel like it was just like so much struggle and all for what. Like I could have taken another class, you know. So those were the two classes I would not have taken. And in place of them, I think music theory, I could have taken like AP art history, AP environmental science, something along that nature. And then in place of AP Physics 1, I honestly would have loved to take CMEC, which is calculus based physics. And honestly, I feel like anything calculus is easier than all the algebra. Because algebra, there's so many setting up equations and it's like so confusing. And I feel like calculus is so much more direct, at least for me. That's how I felt. So that's what I would have taken. And yeah, I'm really glad that I took A Push, AP Lang, like all of those like classes that everyone takes. Like they were not that bad. And honestly, like AP Psychology wasn't that bad either. I'm glad I took it too. Nice GPA boost. So yeah, and if you guys are wondering what my last class was, I took band and I did advanced music, so it gave me a 5.0 credit, like an AP class. So yay, you know. So moving down the list, the next thing I'm going to say that I wish I knew before I went into junior year was just like mentally preparing myself for how hard it was actually going to be. And I feel like I started off the school year thinking like, oh, it's really not going to be that bad. Or like, yeah, I know everyone says it's bad, but like, I don't know, like I'm different, I'm special. Like it's not going to be that bad for me. And obviously that was not the case. So there are going to be lots of late nights, lots of no sleep moments. And if you told my junior year self that, I would not believe that, honestly, because junior year, I feel like, especially second semester, I was really good about getting 6 hours of sleep every night, like being pretty rested. I mean, obviously, I was still tired during school, but like it was never where I was running on like 3, 4 hours of sleep or like fighting to keep myself awake in classes. Like that's kind of what happened junior year, especially towards the end of the year. And AP season was a nightmare. Like the more AP classes you take, the more you have to prepare in advance because once they all start getting dumped on you one after another, like it's genuinely so hard to like study in depth for each class. And I think that kind of happened to me. Like for one of my classes, I think it was AP Psych. I had AP Psych and AP Physics 1. I had already practiced memorizing psych terms beforehand, so I didn't really have to focus on that class as much. And I mostly focused on AP Physics 1, which I felt was like more helpful for me personally because obviously I was struggling in that class. But I think especially during AP season, planning things out, and I know like maybe in years past you could get away with studying like 2 to 3 weeks ahead in time, which is what I did. But this junior year, especially if you're taking more than like 3, even 4 APs, you should definitely consider studying ahead. And it doesn't have to be any crazy studying, it can just be good basic content review so that by the time you actually get onto like your full on studying, you're like more prepared. The next thing that I didn't know going into junior year was that your sleep schedule is going to be an absolute mess. And like I said earlier, like it does get pretty bad at some point. I think first semester for most classes is not that bad. It's like on the little bit of the easier side. Obviously not all classes, but second semester definitely gets worse. And I feel like a big thing in junior year is time management. Especially if you're poor at time management, like try to get better over the summer, maybe try to manage your time better over the summer. Because in junior year, if you cannot manage your time, you will not be sleeping at all, almost. Like I know so many kids, they're smart, they take so many hard classes, but they just have really bad time management, and so they're literally relying off of Celsiuses and coffee all day, every day. And don't let that person be you, because honestly, time management is such an easy fix, you know? Something that can be learned over time and something you can learn to prioritize. I think I definitely got better managing my time junior year, especially. Even though I'd like to think I had pretty good time management freshman and sophomore year, I think I got even better junior year. And I think that just goes to show you like how bad it really is. Like it just forces you to like use more of your time to do your work because otherwise you're not going to be getting any sleep. And obviously we all know no sleep equals like worse brain activity and stuff, and we don't want that, right? And it can also get into an unhealthy pattern over time, getting less and less sleep. So really focus on getting your sleep. And I know that's not always going to happen, but at least 5 hours a day, I would say. Another thing I started doing as well was doing assignments in advance when I had time. So I know a lot of classes don't really hand out syllabi or syllabus for in high school, but some of my teachers did have calendars, and the ones that had calendars that showed future assignments over break, I would try to catch up on all those future assignments, stuff that like didn't really matter. It was just kind of like busy work or notes and stuff. I would do it ahead of time so that when I was actually in school, I had so much other work being put on me. At least I didn't have to worry about these notes or these like small silly assignments, you know. I think that helps as well, getting ahead during breaks or even during the weekend if you have a little bit of extra time. Just getting ahead always helps because you're going to thank yourself later for not having to worry about those things. So I think that's another thing that's really important. And I think last thing that I wish I knew before junior year was to just soak it all in more, you know? Like live through it, not be so like anxious or like I don't know how to say this in the right way, but like, don't be so scared, you know? Like, obviously, it's junior year, you're scared, you don't want to do it. But at the end of the day, it's another year of your life and another year of high school, and you still want it to be monumental. And I think that means still like going out with friends during breaks, spring break. You might not have enough time during the weekends, during the school week, but going out with friends during breaks or after finals or after AP exams is still really important. And I think that helps us celebrate our accomplishments and feel proud about ourselves, which I think is very necessary. So don't beat yourself up over your failures, instead, celebrate your successes. All right. So those are just kind of all the things that I could think of I wish I knew going into junior year. And obviously, I got a lot of advice from other people. So there was some stuff that I knew, but that's just some stuff that I felt like I wish I knew to a greater extent going into high school. So, not high school, junior year. Now we're going to answer some quick questions that people had from Instagram. I have quite a few. So I'm not going to try to go too into depth in all of these, but let's try to answer them. So first we have, is junior year really the hardest year? And I would say definitely yes. I think senior year can be difficult in its own ways with college applications and stressing about that. But I think in terms of academics and the pressure that you feel junior year, it's definitely the hardest year, especially with the PSAT and the ACT and the SAT if you're taking those as well. It is genuinely the hardest year, and I think especially for me, the jump from sophomore year to junior year was really big, and it was much bigger than I expected. So honestly, I'm gonna be honest, it's probably gonna be pretty bad, but obviously don't go into it thinking that, you know, it's just to mentally prepare people, because I know a lot of people are like, they have a different mindset, like, oh, it's not gonna be that bad like I did, and then when it really did get that bad, it kind of threw you off, or you weren't prepared for it. So I would say I would say they should be prepared for it, but it is going to be pretty hard, but just don't go into school thinking about it like that. Otherwise, it's just going to be miserable, honestly. All right, the second question is, how do you balance all the AP classes and homework? I would honestly say, like, my tip for this is a little bit on the extreme side, but you guys have to understand I'm coming from taking 6 AP classes and also being in band first semester. Like, when I was in band, I had to go to rehearsal every single day, 7 a.m. I was an SLT, which is section leader, so it means I have to be there at 6:30. And we obviously had evening rehearsals sometimes. You have games on Fridays and competitions on Saturdays. So obviously that ate up a ton of my time. And I even did this second semester too, which allowed me to get a bit more sleep. But I would honestly say using every single minute of your time at school. I feel like when I'm in school, I just have so much more energy to lock in and do work. But I feel like the minute I come home, the minute I lie on my bed, now I don't want to get up again and start doing work again. Or I need to come home and I need to take a break. Like, I know some people who can come home, set their books on their desk, and just start studying, but I'm not that person. After school, I need a break. And I think this is why one of my biggest tips is, especially if you're like me, is to utilize as much of your time in school as possible. And that means, 5 minutes at the end of class, like nobody's doing anything, instead of pulling out your phone, maybe pull out a homework assignment. And obviously 5 minutes doesn't seem like a lot of time, but that does add up over time. Like if you had 5 minutes at the end of every single class, that could be a whole homework assignment, obviously. And I know classes nowadays are switching more towards the give instructions or give the lesson and give work time approach. I know a lot of students and teachers are more used to that approach nowadays. So honestly, using that time instead of, like, if you're done early, to scroll on your phone, instead of doing that, open up another assignment. And I feel like another thing I also started doing, which I don't really recommend, my throat is getting so dry from all this yapping. So another thing that I don't really recommend, but I did end up having to do, was to do assignments while teachers were lecturing or talking through stuff. And I don't recommend this for all classes. Like, this is definitely not something I did in physics, calc, or like any of those harder classes, or AP music theory, but classes like AP psychology or A push, where it was just kind of knowledge that I kind of already knew or I was comfortable with, or I could learn on my own pretty easily. I would end up doing homework assignments while the teachers were talking. And obviously, I'm gonna say it's not the best tip because it divides your attention and stuff. But no matter what people say, I'm just saying what worked for me. And personally, I think that helped me get through all the homework and notes that I had for other classes. Quick water break, guys. Okay, I would say another tip that I have for balancing all of them is to create a schedule and really like have your goal to-do list for the day. So you're obviously not gonna be able to complete all your homework assignments every single day. Have the goals of which ones are most important, start from there and work down. Otherwise you're gonna be up super late at night completing the assignments that you have to because you did the easier ones first. Alright, let's move on to the next one. Should I start preparing for the SAT or ACT now? I would say definitely yes. Sophomore summer year is the best time to prep and start prepping. I definitely think over junior year, I did not have as much time to prep for the SAT or ACT during the school year. So I think the two best times to prep for them are the summer going into junior year and the summer going into senior year, especially if you're taking any June or July SAT or ACTs, especially or August, beginning of the year before you do college apps. I think those are the best times to prep. Or during like breaks, honestly, during the school year, if you have like spring break and then you're going to take the SAT or ACT in a couple of weeks, that's definitely the best time to prep because during the school, like obviously during the school week, you have so much assignments from school already. It's almost impossible to prep for the SAT or ACT on top of that, especially depending on how many AP classes you take. So I'd definitely say utilize breaks for SAT or ACT or make like a small study habit or routine you can do every day. That's like less than 30 minutes, so it's easy to build in. You can do it like every day or every other day, depending on how much time you have. But I honestly think studying for the SAT and ACT is all about consistency. So if you study like once a month, like obviously you're not going to get a good score, but if you're able to study even like 5 to 10 minutes every single day, you're going to get a much better score than just studying for 3 hours once a month, obviously. Okay, next question. Is it better to take easier classes and get all A's or challenge myself with harder ones? And this is something that I honestly didn't even know the answer to towards the end, until the end of my junior year. And I think it's like really easy to feel like, oh, we should just take easier classes and I'll have a 4.0, right? And that's true. But another thing we want to remember is when you apply to college, colleges are looking at the rigor and the grit of the classes that you take. So if you have all easy on-level classes and you have like a perfect 4.0, like that's great, but they're going to see that that's because you were in all on-level classes or easy classes, right? But if you challenge yourself with AP or even advanced classes that are on the harder side, even if your GPA is a little lower, colleges will see that and that's a bigger factor for them opposed to someone taking like all easy 4.0 classes, obviously. And last thing is, how do you deal with a burnout during the school year? If I'm going to be honest, burnout isn't really an option during the school year. Even if you do feel it, you kind of have to get over it junior year. And I feel like in a way, because it's so stressful and high stakes, I feel like I almost don't feel burnt out at any point in junior year. I feel like the only time I started feeling burnt out was towards the end of AP season, just because there's AP after AP after AP, and I felt like, oh, I studied for all these. Oh my god, finally I'm done with these. Okay, well now I have to start studying for the next ones. And I just felt burnt out in that stage because it was like towards the end, we were like almost at the finish line, but you just had to keep studying for more classes, you know? And honestly, I did experience a good amount of burnout my sophomore and my freshman year. Towards the end of the school year, I just kind of like fell off in terms of work and stuff, started being more lazy, not utilizing my time as well. But definitely that's not something I did junior year. And I don't know if it's because of the mental pressures of junior year or if I just got better at managing my time, but I genuinely did not really feel any burnout. But if you do have burnout your junior year, I would say allow your time to relax and recover, but also remind yourself that it is junior year. Senior year is going to be much better. You just have to get through this year, just pull through it, you know. Obviously, I know that's not the best advice, but that's the advice that I would give. Okay, the next question is, when should I start thinking about colleges? I think you can start thinking about colleges even starting your freshman year, but I definitely think you should start finalizing them throughout your junior year. And I think like having a good list of like maybe like 20 to end the summer going into junior year. I keep calling it the sophomore summer, but summer going into junior year, make sure you guys have a list of colleges, and you can obviously narrow those down as you get towards your end of junior year, as you do more research or you find out more things about different programs. But I think it's definitely good to have a list of all the universities or colleges that you're interested in going to, as well as what major you would do at each college, because not all colleges offer the same majors and minors. So make sure you can look at each college and see, hey, like they don't have my major that I want to do offered here. Well, okay, well now I don't want to go there anymore, you know? So obviously it's not all about the name of the school, but also like what programs they have and stuff like that. Do colleges actually care about junior year grades the most? I wouldn't necessarily say they care about junior year grades the most, but it definitely is a big weighing factor because those most schools that's like the first year you can take a lot of APs, and it shows like colleges like how many you're willing to take and how good grades you can maintain in all those classes while taking such hard classes. So I do think junior year matters the most in terms of that, but I don't think the colleges necessarily weigh junior year grades like way higher than freshman and sophomore grades. How important are extracurriculars this year? I would say they're almost the least important junior year, just because everyone knows that you have so much academic pressure, you can make up for having less extracurriculars through your academics. So I definitely don't think junior year is the time to like enroll in every single club. But I also think that doesn't mean to not do anything outside of school. Like you definitely should, but don't feel pressured to do a ton of extracurriculars your junior year just because everyone knows it's so academic heavy. Like even colleges know that. So they're not expecting you to be in like 50 different places at once. Do you know what you want to major in yet? So, yes, I do want to major in business analytics, business administration, like around that area, or statistics. Those are the three kind of majors that I want to do based on the schools that I've looked at. And yeah, for a minor, honestly, I'm still undecided yet. I was kind of thinking something in like law or the criminal justice field for my minor. I'm either going to do that or something like finance, what I'm thinking. All right, next question. Do you do any internships or summer programs? So last year I did do this like summer program at Texas Health. It's like a hospital. They had this summer volunteer opportunity, and it was like a crazy application process. Like I had to do like a whole blood test and stuff. So it was pretty intense, but it was a really good experience working in the hospital and getting to know people and work in different departments. It was honestly pretty fun, I would say. And I got like 52 volunteer hours from that. So I got a lot of volunteer hours from that. In terms of internships, I think it's really hard to find internships depending on what field you're going to. Obviously, I'd say the medical field is a little more accessible in terms because hospitals always need more help. I think if you want to go into more like the online side with like computers and stuff, talking to maybe someone you know, like an adult who does work at one of those companies, will help you secure an internship. However, in other fields, I do think it is harder to secure internships. So I think I would look more for summer programs, volunteer opportunities, or research ideas that you could do in pertains to like what you're interested in, especially if you can't find internships or summer programs. All right, we have 10 more questions, guys. Is it hard to keep up with friends when school gets intense? I would say to a certain extent, yes, it does, if you mean in terms of hanging out, because I definitely did not hang out with my friends as much as I did in years past. But I think at the end of the day, if you do really do make an effort, if you do really try to make an effort, it's really easy to still keep those relationships with people, especially if you have classes with them, just like bonding over how hard school gets, or just texting them and being like, oh my god, hey, like I'm so scared for this test or whatnot. Like it can feel silly and not like you're really making a connection with them, but I feel like that's really what keeps friendships going over junior year. And also like hanging out and studying, obviously don't hang out with people you know you're gonna yap with, but like always having those friends that you could study with or for certain classes go on like study dates with and like try to study for exams. I think that's really what helps keeps friendships intact. Next is, how do you manage stress during junior year? I think when things got the most stressful, the only thing that I could do was try to like break it down for myself, make life seem a little more easier, taking it one step at a time. And for me, that came in the form of to-do lists or organizing my life instead of like looking at it at this big scale and thinking, oh my god, I have so many homework assignments to do. Instead, I would break it down by day, like what day I'm going to do this assignment, or if it's over the weekend, what assignments I'm going to do Friday, what assignments I'm going to do on Saturday, what assignments I'm going to do on Sunday. And I feel like that just helped me feel much more like it was doable instead of having like this crazy list of 30 things that I had to get done over the next couple of days. I think that definitely helped me in terms of academic stress. Obviously, mental stress is a little harder to deal with. I mean, everyone has their own ways of coping, but I think the gym was a big thing one for me. The gym really helped me relieve some of that stress and get a momentary amount of like pause and break from school, and it was also healthy for me. So I'm really glad that I went to the gym. I think it helped a lot during junior year, even though I didn't have much time. I was happy to sacrifice like the 1.5 hour that I went to the gym and coming back, and I think it really did help me. The next question is, do people still have time for fun stuff like dances or sports? I would say there's obviously time for sports or dance and stuff like that. I think there's always time. But I think at the end of the day, it's what you make of your time. So at the end of the day, if you're not able to manage your time, or you're taking like the most absurd amount of AP classes, like yeah, you definitely might have reduced time or no time for those things. But I think if you are taking a manageable amount of AP classes, like not a crazy amount, maybe like 3 or 4, I think you'll definitely still be able to make time for those. But you do really need to focus on, like, again, like I said, using all your time in school. Next question: how do you stay motivated when everything feels overwhelming? So, in terms of motivation, one thing that I always like to think of is how life would be like when I go to college. And I'm really excited to go to college, and it's like a big thing for me. So, just like sometimes, like visioning, even before I go to sleep, or like writing down in a journal, like how I wish my life was like in college, it made me feel like everything I'm doing right now was like it was going towards somewhere, and that it wasn't all like for no reason. I think that helped me obviously, but if you have like something you want all this to pay off for, like maybe you're, even if this is not applied to academics, even if it's getting into like D1 for a certain sport, or thinking about how it would be in college to be participating in that sport. I think just visioning your life in the future and how your efforts will pay off will allow you to be more fulfilled and motivated towards those goals. Okay, next question. Which teachers are the hardest slash easiest? Okay, so I would say, obviously, we can't go school specific here, but I would definitely say to do your research on teachers before you sign up for classes, especially if you have the option to choose, like I do in my school, which classes you're going to do, because having like a good teacher can make or break your entire class experience and the grade you have in that class, if I'm going to be honest. So, just doing that research and trying to get the best teachers you can will definitely help you have an easier experience junior year, and it'll be easier to keep your grades up as well. Is it smart to ask teachers for recommendations this year? Yes. So I know a lot of people towards the end of the school year, they started asking teachers for recommendation letters and kind of giving them summer to do it. And if you do decide to do this, make sure you give them some sort of brag sheet that has your achievements on it, just to make it easier for them to write about you. So they're not just writing general things. But I definitely do think it's a good idea at the end of summer. You can give teachers recommendation letters you do for them, but just know like you don't have to do that. Obviously, most people end up doing them beginning of senior year, but it is an option to give your teachers the time to do it over the summer before everyone else starts asking for recommendation letters. So that could be a good idea. Next one is, what's the best way to stay on top of assignments? So I think I already explained this earlier, but just like writing every single thing down, like when you get it, write it down. And you can obviously put it off or do it later, but just having it down and knowing that you have to do it, I think that helps you like not forget about things. Because it's so easy to forget about assignments junior year when there's like so much being put on you from all classes. So just being really diligent of having like a Google Doc or like a planning system or like a Notion where you write down every single assignment that you ever have, even if it's not due tomorrow, like still write it down, so you have it there. That's what I would recommend, is just having a really good planning system and breaking it down day by day as well. How do you study for big tests like midterms? So I think the best way that I studied for these, so we had finals, we didn't really have midterms, but we also had AP exams as well. And I think the best thing to do for that is make a study plan up to like 2 to 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time, depending on what it is. Obviously, for finals, you don't need 6 weeks, but AP exams, depending on how many APs, again, you might. But just making a study plan and taking it day by day, taking it in chunks, and knowing what you're going to be doing every day, I think really makes a big difference, especially in terms of studying for big final tests. Obviously, some classes you can't really do it chunk by chunk as much, like math or physics concepts, because I feel like if you don't understand it, you just got to do a ton of practice problems. Like, there's no way you're going to get around that. But I think for other more conceptual based classes, it does make it easier to take it day by day and not have so much crammed in the last second. Because obviously you're probably going to have to cram a ton of practice problems for some other classes. So just having those classes which are more conceptually based be the easier ones for you does help. Okay, next question is, when did you start studying for the SAT/ACT? So I actually started studying my freshman year, but that's when it was still on paper, and they switched it over to digital my sophomore year. So for the digital SAT, I did start studying, I would say, my sophomore year for it. Obviously not as seriously, but more seriously the summer into junior year, as well as during junior year. And now during the summer again, I'm studying for it a lot as well, because I have the June SAT coming up. I actually haven't started studying crazily for the ACT. I did like some basic concept review and some practice problems, but I need to start studying for the ACT because I have it in like the week after the SAT. So I definitely say start soon. Don't start too soon though. I would say it's like not worth it to start freshman year in my opinion. Like it's nice to see the concepts of the questions and stuff, but the only reason your score gets better over time honestly is because you're learning more in English and math. So honestly I think like studying your freshman year is not really like worth it. Okay, the next question is, did you take the SAT or the ACT and why? So I'm taking both, but I would say to take the SAT first to start off with because it is a shorter test. So I think if you start preparing for that first and based on how you do on that, you can move to ACT. That'd be the best option. But I would definitely say if you're stronger in English, the SAT is going to be your test. So definitely stick with SAT if you're stronger in English. But if you're stronger in math, I would definitely say to try the ACT out. Definitely do the SAT, but also try the ACT out because I find that a lot of people who are stronger in math tend to get higher scores in the ACT compared to the SAT. Like I know one of my friends, he took the SAT, he got a 1530. He's like pretty good at English too. Like he's not the worst at English, but like he's definitely better at math. Obviously, he took the ACT and he ended up getting like a 35, which is like insane, right? Compared to a 1530, that's like the equivalent of like a 1590 or 1580, right? So I definitely think try out both tests, especially if you're struggling on the SAT at some point, you start hitting a wall. Like, I understand everything, but I'm just making mistakes and I don't know how to fix it, which is kind of what's happening with me right now. I would definitely say to try the ACT, even just take like a practice test online, see how you do, and see if you want to study for it. Because it's always worth it to take both. Obviously, you just submit which is the better score, you can submit both of them as well, you know? Last question is, how bad is the PSAT? Should I take it seriously? I think on the PSAT, if you're able to get above a 1450, you should definitely study more because you could have the option to get National Merit, and it is a really good scholarship if you do end up getting it. So I definitely think you should take it seriously if you're able to score above a 1450. But I think if you're below a 1450, like obviously you're not going to increase your score by 200 to 300 points overnight. But I do think you should take it seriously, especially your junior year, because obviously it can get you scholarships and stuff, and a lot of colleges start emailing you more if you get above a certain threshold on a score. Obviously that doesn't mean much, but I would definitely say don't take it like super seriously, especially if you're getting like a lower score. But I definitely think that you should still take it seriously. You should still try your best, especially like if you're in the 1400 range. Really getting just a little bit higher, a couple points higher could end up getting you in the national merit range. So that's what I would say. It's also easier than the SAT in terms of the math section. So if you are struggling a little bit more on the math, the PSAT is your test, you know. So if you do really well on the PSAT, you can always get national merit, which is still like a really big thing on your application. Even if you aren't able to do as well on the actual SAT, getting like national merit on the PSAT still looks great on your application and gets you a ton of scholarships. So, guys, that is the end of today's episode. And I know it was just so much talking and information and guidance. And obviously, like, I'm not the best person for everyone. Everyone has their own experience of junior year. And I obviously feel like my experience was a lot more academic heavy, just in terms of everything. But I would definitely say, like, if you guys do try out my tips, don't take them too literally. Obviously, at the end of the day, this is what has worked for me. It's not necessarily going to work for you, but I think giving advice to people and giving them options to choose from is definitely something that I wish I had at the start of junior year. So yeah, that's everything for today, guys. If you do have any additional comments or questions, you can always DM us on Instagram, or you can also leave a comment down below and I'll try to respond to all of them. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching today, and for the all incoming juniors, I wish you guys the best of luck. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be hard, but it's going to be fulfilling, and I know you guys will do great. And for any of the graduating juniors, hey, senior year, guys, it's going to be light. And if you're an incoming sophomore, don't worry yet. You have another easy year till junior year. So yeah, thank you guys so much for listening today, and see you guys next time with another episode. Bye.